Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person. Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing.
He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
We have to keep our country gay.
Oh yeah. Nation. Waldorf Nation. Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Or is it? We start out the show, of course, with some devastating news. Of something that happened over the weekend. It appears that right-wing rhetoric has possibly, I say possibly, though I'm pretty sure, like 99% sure, that, right-wing rhetoric against drag queens is the reason why we saw this. But yes, there was a nightclub mass shooting at an LGBT club in Colorado. So we're going to talk about that. We have, of course, the details on who the alleged shooter is, as well as the response from a lot of the people that are peddling the hatred against the LGBTQ community, as well as drag queens. So we have that. Yeah, big surprise. Alex Jones, of course, is hiding his money. Big surprise, but we've got more details. Steven Crowder says ridiculous things as usual. Yeah, again, including, a little bit of a joke about violence. We'll get into the details. And then you're not going to be surprised. Idaho, a little bit of a race issue there, or I should say a racist issue with the police. So, as usual. All right. So, with that said, why don't we dive into the show? Before we do, please like and share the stream. Very important to do so. Helps us out as usual. Just a programming note here. We'll be having a short week this week due to the holiday, so we'll be off on Thursday, Friday. So let's try to get in as much news as we can in this next couple of days. So, with that, let's get to the disastrous news of the week. Okay. On Saturday night, an unhinged lunatic, yes, that's how I describe him at least, opened fire on a crowd at a Colorado Springs LGBTQ club, injuring 25 people and killing at least 5 before being disarmed and incapacitated by 2 of the club's patrons. So now the alleged shooter has been identified as 22-year-old Anderson Lee Aldrich, the grandson of a MAGA congressperson, or I'm sorry, a MAGA Republican who supported the Capitol riot. Now, this was a Republican of California And so far, the investigators are saying the motive is unclear, even though he has been just charged with hate crimes charges. But look, I'm going to speculate into what led to this. And so just, ahead of time, I am saying this is speculation, but I'm probably going to be correct. So let's be honest. So now, the shooting happened right before Transgender Day of Remembrance, during Transgender Awareness Week, at a place that is LGBTQ friendly, obviously, and hosts drag shows. In fact, there was a drag show that very night. Let me give you the schedule on that. So here we are. Club Q. Not related to QAnon, by the way. Seemingly a target of people who like QAnon. And you can see there are some drag shows, drag bingo, brunch, drag brunch on Sunday. And so, I'm sorry, drag divas show on Saturday and drag brunch on Sundays. So there you go. Now, we know, and this is why it's important here to point out that this place had been doing drag shows, because the right wing has been targeting drag shows, claiming that they're grooming the children into transing themselves or something. It's bizarre. And two of the biggest figures that are saying ridiculous things like this, of course, are Matt Walsh and the Libs of TikTok creator Chaya Reichik, who, by the way, together have also boasted about getting a children's hospital inundated with bomb threats. So congratulations on stoking stochastic terrorism. But here's what she posted, by the way, just hours after this shooting. This is hours after it. Targeting another organization in Colorado dealing with drag queens. So there you go. Look, that is obviously the kind of thing that inevitably leads to violence. And so it's not really difficult to draw the lines between this, okay? Again, you have online hate accounts that are lying and, about misunderstood marginalized groups. Again, there's nothing wrong with tweeting out cringe videos, which again is Libs of TikTok response. Oh, we just take videos that are cringe. There's nothing wrong with cringe compilations. The problem is when you start saying, "Oh, look at these people, obvious groomers. They're grooming your children. They're grooming. They're not only grooming them. They're pedophiles. They're confusing these children. They're mutilating them." Here's how to find them. That's what Libs of TikTok does. Again, if they were just calling out, "Oh, look at this cringy video," these weirdos. Okay, that's one thing. But no, this is targeted harassment, and then of course making sure that their followers know where to find these people. And for months they used Twitter to do that, to publish the locations and organizers of drag events while spreading these these accusations. But they're not the only ones that are doing this, of course. You had recent segments on Fox News claim that drag queens are part of a plot to sexualize children. Yes. Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire has called it drag queens a threat to civilization and democracy. Matt Walsh compared it to cancer, calling for an aggressive approach. Well, it looks like they got exactly what they wanted. Aggressive. Look, we know that when certain people have certain issues, like hatred and bigotry drilled into their heads, well, they're going to believe that stuff. They're going to take action. They're going to grab their guns. They get incited. And now part of what's led to this tragedy was, again, not only the hateful incitement, but also apparently Colorado's pretty weak gun laws, thanks to people like Lauren Boebert. Aldrich was actually arrested back in 2021. after his mother reported to police that he was threatening her to harm her with a homemade bomb and multiple weapons, according to the El Paso County Sheriff's Office in Colorado Springs. He was arrested after a standoff and charged with 5 felonies, according to a press release at the time. Now, you might be wondering, okay, but how did this guy get the guns? Well, it turns out that not only did the red flag laws not catch this guy, but also those felonies, the prosecutors didn't even go after him for this. The El Paso County District Attorney has not commented on why this particular case was dropped. So, look, I know, I can tell you 100% certainty, if I was in a standoff with the cops for 5 hours after threatening to blow someone up, I would be in prison. I would be in prison. But, you know, as anybody else should, by the way, you shouldn't be able to get away with it, no matter who you are. Now, for a black person, that black person would be dead. But happened to be the grandson of a Republican politician, a MAGA insurrectionist. Look, I can't say it had anything to definitively to do with this, but I'm not going to rule it out either. So they didn't charge him. They didn't take his guns. They sealed his case. And then a year later, the guy who still has access to all of his weaponry decides to go on a shooting spree at a club that hosts drag shows. Does that feel like a coincidence? It doesn't to me. Feels like this guy did exactly what some members of the far right have been calling for. Being violent against trans people and targeting drag queens. And now, by the way, to get back to the family for a second here, according to Colorado Springs Mayor John Suthers, the family, the Vopel family, not cooperating with law enforcement. Ooh, how's that for irony, right? Used to be the right wing's law and order. We're supposed to have law and order, guys. You know, we're supposed to have law and order, and we're supposed to respect police at the line. If you got nothing to hide, then, you know, then of course you're going to work with law enforcement. Why is this family not working with law enforcement? Curious. Very curious. I'm just wondering. Now, Suthers also told the Today Show, quote, that this has all the trappings of a hate crime, but then added, we need to look at the social media. We need to look at all kinds of other information that we're gathering from people that knew the individual before we make any definitive conclusions about motivation. No, of course, I believe it's a hate crime. People in the club during the shooting described Aldrich as determined, man in a mission to, you know, kill as many LGBTQIA plus people as they could. Drag queens, because of some weirdo moral panic spread by the far right in order to get just votes. And that's really what it's about. And to get people like, you know, the Ray chick, Lids with TikTok, get them views and attention and revenue and clout. It's disgusting. Now, by the way, they tried to, you know, do this trans moral panic against drag queens during the midterms, and guess what? Didn't turn out as well for them. The most insane far-right people did not win in a majority of these elections, whereas you actually had more establishment Republicans that won in these midterms. And it turns out, you know, look, gay and trans people are accepted by the majority of the country, and that's because gay and trans people aren't harming anyone. No, they're not, you know, grooming your children. They're not pedophiles. It's just not factual. But it doesn't matter, because we've seen over and over again, these people manufacture hate, division, and fear for their own personal ends, for their own personal gain. It's disgusting. They are disgusting. All right, move on. I'm going to show you some examples of the disgusting rhetoric from these people. All right. On Saturday night, the day before the Trans Day of Remembrance, a mass shooter killed 5 and injured 25 at the Q Club in Colorado Springs. And almost immediately, some of the worst transphobes on social media were shocked that some people would look to them for some of the blame. So let's start out with Representative Lauren Boebert. Now, Boebert helped fuel a climate of anti-LGBTQ hate by talking about drag queens, telling them to stay away from the children of Colorado's 3rd District, and who previously responded to a report listing her Twitter account as the 3rd-ranked source of grooming slander on social media by promising to do more. And then, of course, here's more of those statements, tweets by Ms. Boebert. North Carolina preschool, the flag flashcards with the pregnant man to teach kids colors went from Reading Rainbow to Randy Rainbow. By the way, Randy Rainbow, kind of cringe. Not my cup of tea, but whatever. And then she says, take your children to church, not drag bars. Don't you believe in freedom? She also said, kid-friendly drag show in Texas is guarded by masked Antifa guards armed with AR-15s. Do you think that there's maybe a reason for that, Lauren? Do you think there may be a reason why they were there? Could it be, all the threats from the far right? And I love this. She says, remember, they only want your guns. They want to use theirs to protect their depravity. So, no, what is she saying? Hold on. That the Second Amendment only applies to them? I think that is what they're saying. By the way, talking about churches, right? You realize that there's some pretty big scandals involving pedophilia in the churches, specifically the Catholic Church. Saying, by the way, Christianity is not the only religion that's been in trouble for that. Plenty of religions. That's why I'm not a favor of any religion or any kind of centralized power where, one person kind of dictates everything. Like dictators, for example, or monarchists, or, priests, pastors, people who are unaccountable. That kind of thing. Yeah. Turns out I like democracy. Who knew? Now, that said, Boebert, here's what she tweeted out on Sunday morning. The news out of Colorado Springs is absolutely awful. This morning, the victims and their families are in my prayers. This lawless violence needs to end, and end quickly. So good old thoughts and prayers. Because if you give thoughts and prayers, you don't actually have to do anything to solve the problems. Now, to be fair, the Q Club is not in her district, but she could, of course, since she is a United States Congresswoman still, sadly, could actually, pass legislation or, support legislation to do things like ample gun control. Maybe, but then again, she chooses not to. Now, the other thing that she could have done to prevent this is maybe to change her views on the LGBTQIA plus community and maybe not spread the smear about all members of that community being groomers. That would be great. Now, that said, the first 2 victims named in the Club Q shooting were bartenders Derek Rump and Daniel Aston. According to GLAAD, Aston identified as transgender. And I'm going to guess, of course, that the only prayers that Lauren Boebert had for Daniel Aston was that he wasn't trans. Because understand, this is who they are. people like Lauren Boebert think that being gay and trans are choice, and that, well, if you didn't choose to be that way, then we wouldn't have to do violence against you. Or you wouldn't be mocked. You wouldn't have violence done against you because, you wouldn't do, suicide. You wouldn't do that. So why don't you people just stop being trans and gay? Why? That's Lauren Boebert's thought process. That they should choose Jesus. But there's more. Ben Shapiro. Let me see if I have that image here. That tweet. Not quite. But let me go to read it, because there's another Ben Shapiro one. He says, the quest by the Democratic leadership and media to link a horrifically evil shooting at a Colorado gay club to anyone who doesn't support a progressive social agenda is ongoing and terrible for the country. It's a cynical game. Only one side plays, and it's trash. Let me just say, Ben Shapiro, trash. Ben, do you forget how you and other right-wingers talk about how the entirety of Black Lives Matter protests were nothing more than dangerous and deadly riots responsible for burning down entire cities, even though it was 93% peaceful? You remember that, Ben? Do you remember? Do you remember? But it's a cynical game that only one side plays. Yeah. Yeah, you just described yourself. You just described your own side. Every accusation is a confession. That said, Ben Shapiro has prior statements that he has broadcast to his massive YouTube audience. Here's one of those.
Now, if you're wondering what the hell a family-friendly drag show is, the answer is it doesn't exist. It is a contradiction in terms. You might wonder why it's appropriate for small children to be visiting any bar, let alone a drag bar, which is inherently sexual.
It's inherently sexual. Why are children there? Yeah, I remember going to a bar when I was. Yeah, if you're there during the daytime, I didn't see what the issue was. Not like they were serving a 12-year-old beer. No, it's ridiculous. So, again, but you don't understand. It's inherently sexual. No, there are non-sexual drag shows, and then there are sexual-themed drag shows where there are no children involved. They're separate things. But they cannot seem to separate that. They cannot seem to understand that, yes, there is drag that is not sexual, and then there is drag that is. They don't get it. And by the way, I find it interesting, or not just interesting, but actually really hilarious, how Ben Shapiro, how a guy, is talking about things being inherently sexual, who doesn't understand that female wetness, who seems to believe that female wetness is a sign of a health problem.
Wet ass P word.
He doesn't get it. Not exactly an authority on anything sexual. But I showed you the other image here from Ben Shapiro. Here's what he recently wrote. My latest for the Real Daily Wire dives into the insidious philosophy of transgressivism. Oh, transgressivism. What is going on here? How it targets children and how and why we must fight it, not only politically, but personally. Personally fighting transgressivism. But it gets even worse. It gets more extreme, because Ben Shapiro, he's just like the tip of the iceberg in horribleness. Here's Tucker Carlson.
So let's say you're interested in sexualizing children, and unfortunately some people are. What would you do? You might have a drag queen story hour. at a library or a school. That's where you would indoctrinate and sexualize children. It's happening across the country.
The academic queer theorists and the people who founded the Drag Queen Story Hour movement have left a trail of evidence in academic papers and manifestos that say the goal is very clear. They want to sexualize children, creating a sexual connection between adult and child, which has, of course, long been the kind of final taboo of the sexual revolution.
I knew going into this battle, you know, fighting pedophilia and the grooming of children, that it would be an uphill battle and that big tech would try and censor us. You know, to have people attack us for just simply wanting to stop the sexualization and mutilation of children, it does a lot more to expose who they are than us. So,
it really does.
You know, we roll with it, but.
Oh, yeah, totally does. Yep, says a lot about them. No, it doesn't. So Tucker Carlson not only goes on and you know, says ridiculous and horrible things, you know, accusing drag queens and everybody of being pedophiles, but also platforms some of the worst people, like Christopher Rufo. Well, you just heard him. It's like, oh, yes, there's a manifesto with their whole goal, sexualize children. Says who, dude? Says who? And then we have Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh also, weirdly enough, seems to deny that any of his rhetoric has anything to do with the violence against trans people and drag queens. Leftists are using a mass shooting to try to blackmail us into accepting the castration. He can't even, in his denial, he can't even stop himself. He just can't. Like, oh, you know, like, we had nothing to do with this. Even though we're saying that they're castrating and sexualizing children. No! People are just beyond evil. I have never felt more motivated to oppose everything they stand for with every fiber of my being. Despicable scumbag. Somehow, like, he's the victim. I can't believe you would victimize me by like this. You know, for me putting out the message that has caused so much violence against these communities. And then he says, people die, and the first thing they think is, yes, we can use this as ammo against conservatives who don't think children should be exposed to drag shows. Soulless demons, evil to the core, truly. Oh, I think we have found evil, all right. It's Matt Walsh. Again, basically, he's dancing on the grave of these people, of the 5 people who were murdered because somebody decided they didn't like a drag show. But it gets, again, worse. Because this is what Matt Walsh had said before this had all happened.
I was not previously familiar with the term drag mom, though from context it seems that this is just another way of describing a professional groomer. The, quote, drag child is handed over to the drag mom to be groomed and conditioned. It seems to be essentially a sort of pedophilic, predatory farm system that the groomers have set up. Progressivism does what the name suggests, what the label suggests. It's progressivism, so it progresses, except that it progresses in the same sense that, say, cancer progresses. It keeps spreading and getting worse and eating away at our civilization until it is stopped, or until it destroys its host. And just like cancer, stopping it is not a gentle or a painless process. The farther along the cancer is, the more aggressive you have to be in fighting it. Culturally, we are approaching, if we haven't already reached, a terminal state, which means we have to be all the more aggressive, which calls for 2 things. First, obviously, involving children in drag events in any capacity should be outright criminalized everywhere. There is no other way. You know, this doesn't stop until police are breaking down the doors at these places and carting the adults away in handcuffs. Charge them all as pedophiles. Throw them in prison, and whenever they get out, if they do get out, put them on the sex offender registry for life.
This is the guy who on the radio had talked about how 16-year-old girls are very fertile. Talking about the fertility of teen girls. And yet he's saying, oh, no, it's them who are the pedos. They are the groomers. It is they who are grooming. No, I think you're protesting a little bit too much. I think you're a little too obsessed with drag queens. I think you're a little too obsessed with all of this stuff. And it's because I think he's covering for himself. Nobody thinks about pedophilia. Nobody thinks about, little kids more than Matt Walsh. What a creep. And so there it is. It's weird how the people who seem to be, screaming so loudly about the drag queens grooming children and being pedophiles, again, you heard it in their own words, right? Are suddenly so very surprised that, whenever somebody decides to grab their gun, put a stop to them. I showed you the video as well of, a person who was throwing an explosive into a donut shop that had, hosted a drag event. These are not isolated incidences. And yet they're all incredulous. Oh my God, I can't believe somebody would blame me for the things that we've been calling for. And then somebody went and actually did it. And then we get to Chaya Right Chick, libs of TikTok. Here's what she said about this. I've publicly disavowed violence numerous times. Have you disavowed the violence directed at me? As a result of inciting your followers against me? Let's see you disavow violence and then SDF you, lying hypocrite. Huh. Well, somehow, don't you know I'm the real victim here? Me? I'm the victim. I can't believe you would do this to me. Wait, who is the person that was, again, just hours after this happened, posting about another Colorado, organization or Colorado group that is doing drag shows? I mean, seriously. Seriously. Oh, but no, I'm the victim. I'm the victim. No, the fact is, I think the kids are far safer around drag queens than any of these fucking hateful ghouls. Because that's what they are. And the other thing that seems to be missed around here that nobody talks about on the right wing. It's not like kids, first of all, okay, if a kid sees a drag queen, you think that's automatically going to make them want to be a drag queen? No. Of course not. And again, there's nothing wrong if they want to when they grow up. Fine. Fine. But the other thing is, these events, people are, parents are taking their kids to those events. Nobody's forcing them to be there. They can leave. It's not like they're being held captive like the people at, for example, Donald Trump's announcement for, when he announced he was running for president. You can actually leave. Security's not going to stop you. You're not forced to watch the drag queens. But look, at the end of the day, it's very, very obvious that this is all about targeting a subgroup of people. People that have done nothing wrong, but they're targeting them nonetheless for hatred and harassment for whatever reason. And there's multiple reasons that you can point out, whether it be clout, clicks, revenue from videos, from outraging people to, political stuff. Whatever the reason, it doesn't matter. Regardless of the reason, this is disgusting what they're doing and how they're targeting people. And, unfortunately, they're going to keep doing it. Okay. Richard Boyd says, when I went to France 5 years ago, my friend took myself and his family with their kids to a drag show. There were other families there also. It was very entertaining, and it is the norm to see Paris. Oh, there you go. To the right, you can't raise your kids how you want. You have to raise them how they want, points out MMO Dork, 100%. No, that's very, very true. Very true. Like, oh, we just want parental freedom, except for, you know, anything to do with gender affirming care, or, you know, being progressive, or, you know, learning facts or information or anything like that. Not like that. Not like that. No, we want you to indoctrinate the kids in churches. Which, by the way, like, I've seen progressive churches. So, you know, obviously we're going to know their thoughts on that. Oh, no, those churches don't count. The ones that are inclusive, they don't count. No, they have to be the hateful ones. Only the hateful ones. We know who they are. All right. So, moving on. Let's go to Alex Jones. InfoWars founder Alex Jones has been busted. Yes, he's been caught trying to avoid paying what he owes to the families of Sandy Hook for, you know, defaming them. So now Jones was ordered to pay these families who of the children who were murdered in the 2012 massacre at the Sandy Hook Elementary School hundreds of millions of dollars. In fact, even more. I think the total in damages and payments is like $1.5 billion. Damn. And that's after he falsely accused them of being crisis actors and even accused the children of literally not existing. Like, they're not real. You just made your children up. So it's all a plot to take our guns. Ridiculous. Horrifying, even. But Jones then has argued, since, by the way, these are all default judgments, he didn't even do discovery like he was supposed to, and then barely defended himself. And so, look, after all these losses and these judgments piled up, Jones has argued, well, I don't have money. So I don't have money. Well, now we know why. Turns out he's been funneling money everywhere else to avoid paying. According to an examination of financial records conducted by the Washington Post, Jones has been moving money around in a way that's designed to make it harder for families to collect. The paper reports as the potential for damages mounted, Jones began moving millions of dollars out of his company, Free Speech Systems, and into companies controlled by himself, friends, or relatives. The transfers potentially put these funds out of reach of the Sandy Hook plaintiffs. Among other things, the Post found that Jones started paying his personal trainer $100,000 a week to help ship supplements and other merchandise, and that a company managed by Jones' sister, and we'll have more details on those, listed as a supplier or vendor, was paid $240,000 for services that we have no details on. But, you know, look, it's it's totally above board. We're not trying to hide our money at all. Oh, no. It's for things that we owed. Now, the Post notes that these transactions tipped Jones' company Free Speech Systems into bankruptcy this summer, and that this could leave the Sandy Hook families going on what would be a wild goose chase, trying to pry compensation out of a lengthy list of creditors. Again, we've got details on who those creditors are, and you're not going to be surprised, of course, that one of the creditors is Jones. Now, one of the lawyers, Evie Moschenberg, an attorney representing Sandy Hook families, tells the Post that he believes Jones is moving money around in order to shield his wealth, deprive his client of money that is rightfully theirs. In the middle of this lawsuit, they started documenting debts that had no evidence of existing beforehand. Well, wait, I don't understand. Alex Jones, he would never make things up, especially when money is involved, right? Right? Well, I mean, if you think that, you're full of shit. Saying. Okay, but look, his entire career has been lying for profit endlessly. So now, that said, bankruptcy court, this will go to bankruptcy court, and they'll figure out, which creditors will be paid, how much, and also examining promissory notes to a company called PQPR Holdings. Now, PQPR Holdings is a company that Alex Jones owns with his parents and other, owns with his parents. Not only that, but the court is looking at these promissory notes and making sure that them and other transactions happen to be legitimate, which again, there is reasons for companies to move, money around, small businesses to move money around, and of course, family members to be working at small businesses. I get that, right? Now, that said, with all the very high profile, or the fact that this is a high profile case, or cases that have been ruled against Alex Jones, and that, the fact that he's, been so combative against the entire process during these different court cases, and then going on his show and talking about how, this is all a sham, this is all an attempt to shut him down, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, look, you got to take all that into account when looking at these weirdo transactions that clearly look as if he is trying to prevent the Sandy Hook families from getting any of this money. Now, attorneys for PQPR have argued in court that, we should be paid, the company that Alex Jones and his parents own, before any unsecured creditors. Unsecured creditors would include the Sandy Hook plaintiffs. Now, so let me just kind of break it down a little bit more simply. Lawyers for a company that Jones and his family own are saying that Jones owes himself, through Free Speech Systems, at least $55 million, and that they should get that money first. So Alex Jones owes Alex Jones money, and is arguing that Alex Jones should get Alex Jones money first before the people who sued and won against Alex Jones. What? Oh, and by the way, oops, since Alex Jones owes Alex Jones money, Alex Jones doesn't have any money left because Alex Jones had to pay Alex Jones. So therefore, I'm bankrupt, and I shouldn't have to pay anybody. Oh, I guess I'm bankrupt now. Yeah. I can't give you any money. What are they going to do with you? You can't get blood from a stone. You know what I'm saying? The New World Order, they can't get any more money out of me because I have all these companies that I own, that I, owe. Oh, okay. Right. Sure. Now, attorneys for the Sandy Hook family actually contended in another lawsuit filed back in April in Texas State Court. The PQPR is not an independent business, and that Jones is engaged in fraudulent transfers to shield his wealth, and have argued that in bankruptcy court that Jones began moving his money out of Free Speech Systems only after he began to face legal setbacks in these defamation cases. So now the question is he going to be able to get away with his money? Well, that's an interesting question, one that I don't have the answer to, honestly. But he's certainly trying. Some other, transfers. February earlier this year, Jones transferred ownership of his Austin home, appraised at $2.8 million, into his wife's name, according to county property records. He'd withdrawn $61.9 million from his own personal account, according to the same records. Personal trainer, more details on that, Patrick Riley, in March created a logistics company, Blue Ascension Logistics, back in March, which hired nearly all of its employees from InfoWars and uses the same warehouse rent-free to fulfill supplement orders, which of course he made tons and tons of money off of. In fact, most of Jones' money actually came from these supplements, a lot of which is, ironically, yes, you got the dick pills, Dick Force Plus, right? But mainly brain pills. Think about that for a second. Brain pill. Jones agreed to pay this, yes, I said personal trainer, $400,000 upfront and $105,000 per week. Per week, not per month, per week. Riley did not respond to voicemails seeking comment, testified only that he is the sole owner of the company that he just created in March to handle this very booming supplement industry that's been around for years. Suddenly now had to become a company and handle all that stuff. Yes. Right. At $400,000 a month. But there's more. In May and June, Free Speech Systems also made 6 payments totaling $240,000 to a company managed by Jones' sister, Marley Jones Rivera. According to the bankruptcy records, the records do not specify who owns the company or the nature of his business. So, I mean, there's, again, 2 possibilities. Either they just didn't have any information available, and that happens, or they're not even trying to hide it. And not that well. Oh, yeah, there's, my sister, she owns the company, and, see, the company does things for us. Does a lot of very important things. Oh, what does it do? Well, it does things. I can't really, I'm not really getting into the details. Let me just say that it's very, very important and integral to our business. And that's why we had to pay them $240,000. Yeah. Yep. By the way, do you need some Brain Force? A Brain Force Plus. Yeah. Oh, come on, man. Wow. So now, the bankruptcy judge in Texas, by the way, Christopher M. Lopez, is expected to determine whether Jones had indeed engaged in these fraudulent tactics designed to wall off his assets from creditors. If the court finds that he did, then the money that has been paid out or committed as debt could be divvied among the creditors, said Georgetown University law professor Adam J. Levitin, an expert in corporate bankruptcy. Levitin said that the most likely scenario may be that Free Speech Systems chooses to liquidate. Now, that's interesting. Which means that Jones would forego the right to all of his films, brands, intellectual property, the InfoWars name included. He said there's nothing beyond a real Hail Mary route for him to avoid liability at this point. So now, look, forgive me if I'm wrong, because I'm not like hugely knowledgeable about bankruptcy law, as I am not a lawyer. But okay, so say he does liquidate, couldn't he just come back later on and be like, welcome to my new show, not InfoWars, but Knowledge Wars. Yep. Welcome back to Knowledge War. I'm your host, Alexander Jones. And let me tell you about the New World Order. I don't know if he's able to do that, honestly. But I wouldn't count him out in not only, trying to obviously revive his empire, but just to hide his money. I mean, I could see this guy going out and burying cash in the desert to avoid paying what he owes. I mean, he's that kind of person. But I do hope that, justice eventually prevails and these families do get what they're owed for, again, what was horrifying, horrible, defamation on the part of Alex Jones. Okay. So let's go to Steven Crowder. Tuck Buckford. There you go. YouTube post Steven Crowder recently made a joke about punching Democratic Representative Adam Schiff.
How is Adam Schiff allowed to call anything racist on behalf of any race?
It's a good point.
It's the whitest looking human being I've ever seen.
Yes.
He does.
It's they could do a remake of Powder.
Yes, they could.
Looks like the Penguin.
Hey, let me tell you, he's shifty. That's why his name is Schiff.
That's a good point.
I'll say it.
Yep.
It wasn't a joke. He's just a creep.
Yeah, and everything that he touches politically becomes Ausshift.
That's right.
Turns to shift.
He's the Ausschiff.
Does turn to shift
of political candidates.
He's a cartoon.
Yes, he is.
I believe he's just a cartoon walking among us.
Hey, tricks, kids, beat him up.
Yeah, no kidding. He doesn't deserve your tricks.
Silly Schiff. Silly Schiff. J-Mandarings for kids. Now, let me just recap this for you.
Hit me.
It was a cartoon that we asked to do that, by the way.
Cartoon.
The
cartoon.
The tricks, yes, we don't. Ugh. You do what you want.
Thanks, YouTube.
Are on YouTube.
I keep forgetting. It was a fun 2 weeks.
Yeah, I beat him. Oh, you know what? We're actually kidding because, we're just talking about a cartoon. Yeah, that's it. That's the ticket. It's just a cartoon. Don't worry about it. Look, are these guys supposed to be comedians? I don't know. Like, is that show supposed to be funny? Or what? I don't understand what the appeal of it is. I don't. I don't know. Maybe it's because my brain hasn't melted and hasn't oozed out of my ears. I don't understand. Why are these people entertaining? Why do people watch them? I don't know. But okay. That said, let's go to Ausschiff, right? You heard that. Ausschiff. So basically, you're comparing Adam Schiff to a Nazi? Is that what you're saying? But we're not promoting violence or anything like that. We're just calling our opposing, Democrat a Nazi just because we can. Oh, okay. Now, that said, let me show you more of the context here, because earlier in that video, he actually talked about Nazis. And of course, he gets it wrong.
Yeah, Hitler must have been right-wing. Why? Because you've never heard that it had socialist in the name, and every single policy was, of course, radically socialist. That's one thing people try. They think they'll put you on your heels like, you're saying Hitler was a liberal? I'm saying Hitler was a leftist. Yeah, of course I am. Of course I am. Yeah. The only argument that you have is that, well, he was racist. And the only reason someone would say, well, I'd put that on the right-wing side of the ledger is because you say that right-wingers are racist. I say I put on the leftist side of the ledger Hitler, when you look at his centralized government planning, when you look at disarming people, when you look at his I say, well, also the socialism, because it's in the name.
Well, there's a lot in there. Wow. Oh, look, Hitler's left. The only problem they had with Hitler was the racism. Wait, what? I'm sorry, what? The whole plunging the entire world into a world war, the warmongering, the Holocaust, all that stuff. Oh, but the only problem with the left, has about Hitler is just a racism. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And by the way, so again, there's so much wrong there. So many points that he just completely lies about, butchers the facts on everything. Oh yeah, banning guns. Yep. No, he expanded gun rights, gun ownership. Just restricted it to certain people, like Jewish people, whom he blamed for everything and demagogued constantly. But yeah, let's ignore that though. Let's ignore that. Oh, and socialist is the name. So obviously that makes it socialist. Really? So are you saying that the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, North Korea, is democratic? It's got democratic in the name. Obviously, they're the People's Republic of China. They're a republic. I mean, if we're just going to assign no meanings to words whatsoever, then sure, I guess any word could mean anything, Stephen. I could call you a strong male, role model, but it wouldn't mean anything. At least in the case of Steven Crowder. I mean, look at him sitting there pretending to be a tough guy. Oh, I'm wearing a holster. I'm wearing a gun. Yeah, it makes me a tough guy. I'm all strapped and ready to go. No, he would scream and cry the first time he hears a gunshot. Please. Please. But look, again, they started the segment with Hitler's a leftist. Again, Hitler was a fascist. Fascists are far right. And called him Ostschiff in a reference to Auschwitz, right? And then, of course, proceeded to joke about beating him up. And by the way, that last part was like, oh, just a joke. It's just a cartoon. Yeah, it's how far they want to go to avoid being held accountable. This comes in the context, again, that was earlier today. Over the weekend, there was an unhinged lunatic that went into a LGBT bar that hosted drag shows and shot 25 people. So, and it's probably going to come out like a lot of these mass shooters that they were fans of, people like Alex Jones, Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson. And yet they're the ones who project and say, oh no, that's the left that's really violent. People on the right constantly using violent language and imagery against the left all the time. Oh, we gotta stop the left. The left's destroying America. They're grooming your children. They're stealing your freedom. They're taking your guns. Are you going to do something about it? But I didn't say do violence specifically. Oh, no. We're against that. Except that you got to do something. What are you going to do something? What are you going to do something? How are you going to do to stop them? What are you going to do to stop them? Don't you believe in the Second Amendment? I believe in the Second Amendment. Yeah, message received. Just once, could they actually have a conversation about policy that doesn't devolve into complete, total madness? Lies? No, apparently not, because if they did, they would lose a lot of people. They would lose the rabid base of people who tuned in to get outraged on a daily basis. And that's what Steven Crowder's show is all about. It's nothing more than just outrage. Constant outrage. And by the way, he wants to talk about drag queens, which, by the way, he didn't in this case, but if he ever does, and he probably will, Steven Crowder takes every opportunity he can to dress up as a woman. Watch the show before. You know that this is true. I don't think there's anything wrong with him doing it, but again, he seems to think so. He seems to think it's wrong when everybody else does it. Just saying. At a time when the right wing is responsible for the majority of terror in this country, you'd think that, people who are influencers might want to cool it down and bring people together. Try to take away from this air of violence. But instead, Crowder, you can see what his main priority was. And that's just to avoid being demonetized or losing his ability to live stream on YouTube in order to make money. That's who Steven Crowder is. Okay. Let's go on to one last story here. Shocker. A former Idaho police captain is under fire after he allegedly participated in a white nationalist conference under a pseudonym. So according to the Idaho News, former police department officer Matt Bringleson used this pseudonym as a speaker for the American Renaissance Conference, which is a right-wing organization. And it's actually more of a right-wing newsletter. And they also do apparently some video conference stuff, meetings. Now, according to Boise Mayor Lauren McLean, this weekend I learned of Boise Police Department officer Matt Bringleson's participation in a white nationalist conference and his ongoing contributions to racist dehumanizing propaganda, basically writing for their newsletter. The fact that such an individual could serve in the department for 2 decades is appalling. Well, is that really surprising, though? Yes, of course, it's appalling, but like, it's Idaho, and the far right has a pretty large influence in Idaho. And look, it's not because the people of Idaho are racist. No, it's because you have a lot of racists that have decided Idaho would be a great place to go and relocate to and create their racist utopia. And of course, they're actually being welcomed by some members of the Idaho Republican Party. They've set up shop. And not only that, but again, Idaho does have also a history of being a haven for white supremacists back in the 80s and 90s. You had the Aryan Nation. What a very, very big impact and very, very big presence there before it was broken up. So it shouldn't be surprising at all that this element exists and has positions, people in positions of power. According to the Idaho News, Brinkleson worked in multiple roles for the city's police department over the past 20 years, including field training officer, neighborhood contact officer, narcotics detective, SWAT member, patrol sergeant, NCO unit sergeant, Metro Task Force, gang unit, and training unit lieutenant. According to the Idaho Statesman, Ringelson appeared on the American Renaissance Conference speaker list under the apparent pseudonym Daniel Vineyard. So, now look, using a pseudonym, I don't know, maybe that's a good sign, because it means that he seems to be cognizant enough to know that his connections are a problem. He's a little bit self-aware, but then again, at the same time, not smart enough to just not do it. It's like the hatred is just like, oh, I can't help myself. Oh, I have to go and speak at this white nationalist conference because I hate black people. Oh, yeah, I can't resist. I know, I'll just come up with Daniel Vineyard. Now, the blog posts that appear to be authored by Brinkleson in the Renaissance, which is a funny way to describe their rag, include him recounting to the point in his police career where he says he became aware of violent tendencies of blacks. Yeah, apparently referencing 1350. It's all good racists like to do. American Renaissance, by the way, is a website publication, former print magazine. The founder, Jared Taylor, characterized as a race realist, which, yeah. Now, posts on the site focus on white superiority and use arguments that people of color are inherently less intelligent than white people who contribute more to crime and other societal ills. Apparently, this guy, all of these people, by the way, are not smart enough to realize that the amount of melanin in your skin has nothing to do with your intelligence. They can't. Do you even science, bro? Can you even figure out basic biology? How people's brains work? But again, these so-called race realists, they've never been very smart. They, of course, ignore socioeconomic factors, historical issues like racism, Jim Crow, etc., and instead, basically are modern-day phrenologists. These are the people that measure skull shapes to determine. Oh, see, you got a different skull shape. That means you're not smart. And certain people have certain skull shapes, obviously, and so that's what makes them predisposed to crime. No, there's nothing real about that. There's nothing real about race realism. Even nothing real about race. It's a construct. So it's funny calling this kind of publication a renaissance is a slap in the face to any actual renaissance. And any intelligent person whatsoever. It's a step back into the weirdo science, pseudoscience world of, again, measuring skulls. Now, finally, Mayor McLean said this. People of Boise deserve a police department worthy of their investment and trust. We are launching a full investigation accordingly. More to share in the coming days about this investigation and next steps. Well, if he's no longer on the police force, then what's the investigation going to do? Honestly. Sure, I mean, yeah, outing a racist is great to make sure that he doesn't get a job at another, police department. Or maybe, like, I don't know, if he retired, take the guy's pension. Other than that, I'm not sure, but there's also the possibility that since it is Idaho, that he might, that they might not do anything. So there's that. Nonetheless, there you have it. Another racist cop outed for racism. Shocker. But actually not shocking at all. All right. So let me go through here and read some super chats before we head out, because that's the show. Didn't show up for me earlier, so I got to do this the hard way. The stupid way. All right. So, Dango Bango says Matt Walsh self-reported that he's attracted to young men. He also can't stop talking about how he just wants to be a brat. Whew. He also admitted he does not wash a certain part of his body. Interesting. Also gross. Jonathan Leiter with a reference that I'm not familiar with. This is Randy Rainbow's 21st Century Alan Sherman. Again, I don't know who that is. Bad. You like? I am old and do not understand reference. I know. If I can find anything else. I just saw something across my screen, but all right. Which Hunger Games 1989. Thank you for resubbing for a month, tier 1. Appreciate that for 11 months. Awesome. 11 months. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Appreciate that. Chris Huggy, thank you for resubbing for a month, tier 1 for 4 months. So glad to be here. Well, I'm so glad to have you here. I appreciate you, all of you. All right. So, that's it. Thank you all. Please like and share the stream on the way out. Appreciate that. And, to everyone, have a great day. Back tomorrow. Love you all. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. Have a great night.
Amazing. Oh, man, I'm sorry. They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.
Disappointed.